You have your swords, I have my tricks. We play with the toys the gods give us. This is Belly Up Fantasy Live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. This is Belly Up Fantasy Live. I'm your host, Chris Pinto. I have a Sig with me, as always, my cohort in crime, Billy Witt at BWitt, the 2-4 club from his running back days. Billy, what's going on in Iowa, sir?
Not a whole lot, my man. Another week deep into this season, week 6 already. It's starting to feel like mid-season, and we have some changing at the guard, at the quarterback position, injuries, bye weeks, all sorts of things that come through this week.
A lot of news to talk about. We're going to get into it game by game for you guys. First, I know we joke around a lot about Brandon being on Endor, but he's actually in Florida, so that's why he's not here live with us. Thoughts and prayers go out to our third partner, Brandon Gabor, and everyone down in Florida. Um, Guys, the opening quote, I like quotes from movies. This was a one that I stumbled upon the other day, and I was like, man, I haven't seen this movie in a long, long time. And I watched it like 6 times. It's Troy. It's really, really good. You can check it out on Netflix. Have Brad Pitt, Eric Bana, Orlando Bloom, Diane Kruger, a bunch of guys from 300. The running back from Friday Night Lights. He plays Petrocles, Brad Pitt's cousin. So that's the opening quote from Troy. This game slate, though, Billy, it reminds me of this movie Troy. There's a lot of different battles in that movie that kind of resemble the battles going on this week. The underdog wins some. Got the blitzkrieg butt whooping ones, an offense versus defensive struggle. Ones where favorites dominate. Ones, fraud alerts going on. Ultimate battles, and then some fillers where it's just progresses the movie, right? We have some of those, a lot of those actually, in this game slate. But before we get to the games, guys, real important news. Like Billy mentioned at the beginning, some changing of the guard. Um, 3 different quarterback changes, right? New England decides to go with the 1.03 Drake May out of UNC. The Drake May era begins against my Houston Texans at Gillette. The Las Vegas Raiders decide to go with Aiden O'Connell. Antonio Pierce named him the starting quarterback today. And then down in New Orleans, because of a torn oblique by Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, the former OU Burmouth Sooner and Gamecock from South Carolina, man the helm this week. Spencer Rattler, an Elite 11 winner. We'll talk about some more Elite 11 winners throughout the show. But injury news, right? Zach Moss not at practice. I'm sure, we don't ever cheer for injuries, but Billy will talk some sweet stuff about Chase Brown later. Billy's Colts wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. out today, maybe out for a little while, maybe put on IR. Also, Robert Saleh fired, boy. New York announces the DC is the interim head coach. So we'll talk about that too when we get to the game. Did I miss anything, Billy? Any more important news?
I think that's all the big pertinent stuff that we gotta hit on because it definitely changes the outlook of situations.
Absolutely. This week, before last thing before we get into the game slate, the bye weeks. Let's go to the bye weeks. We've got production doing some pretty cool graphics for us. I like the Patrick Mahomes on this one, I believe. Yep, the king himself, son of Texas himself, right there. The Kansas City Chiefs are on bye week next week. They travel to San Francisco. The Minnesota Vikings, they're on bye week this week. Obviously, Justin Jefferson needs to heal up a little bit, right? Look at him. He looks a little sad right there. They host Detroit next week. The Los Angeles Rams host Las Vegas next week. And the Miami Dolphins travel to Billy's Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. So bye weeks are plenty fantasy relevant players right here. We'll talk about the guys that you can pick up game by game because we got 14 games to talk about, Billy, and I want to do it in under 2 hours. Do you think we can do it?
I think we can do it. I think we can do it.
Very good. Let's get to it then, right? The opening battle, the opening game on Amazon Prime, 7:15. San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks. It's a divisional matchup, divisional game, NFC West. It's going to be a good one. It's like the opening battle in Troy. Bo Agrius versus Achilles. Bo Agrius is this huge, hulking, dominating monster like the San Francisco 49ers. And little Achilles comes out a little late, does these cool moves, ends up pulling off the upset for the underdog. I think the Seattle Seahawks, I don't know if they're the underdog in this. Maybe you can help me with that, Billy, with the over-under on this one at 49.5. Quarterbacks in this, you got Brock Purdy, Geno Smith leading the NFL in passing, I think, right now. He was also an Elite 11 winner. We'll talk about that, why that's important later. But, Billy, what do you think about these quarterbacks?
Yeah, Brock Purdy been a little bit underwhelming, but these Niners have been really unhealthy. But Deebo Samuel almost not contributing, and Juwan Jennings, if you look at it, it looks about the same, about one good week each. Brandon Ayuk, welcome back to the party last week, and hopefully he can start to build on the momentum that he started. And George Kittle, he's been top 10 last 3 games out, or I think actually top 4 actually. But George Kittle being the really mainstay in that offense. And Geno Smith really surprising everybody, coming out, slinging it around. But we have seen this offense be really inconsistent. Big weeks for everybody, and really some duds in there as well. And last week they really had a dud against the New York Giants, losing that game. Running backs, though, Jordan Mason, second in the NFL in rushing, leading the NFL in carries. That's volume that you got to have in your lineup. Really only had 1 week that wasn't playable. And Kenneth Walker Jr., now that he's back healthy, kills the Charbonnet shares that were happening. But Kenneth Walker has been doing pretty well. Top 15 in all 3 of his outings. And he's... 5 carries for 19 yards last week, but still had a top 15 week. He's starting to catch balls, and that was a knock that we had on him really kind of all the time. Was Charbonnet might creep into that workload because of his ability to catch balls, but now Kenneth Walker starting to do that as well, giving him a nice floor even on those really bad, tough days to run the ball.
Absolutely. So when we look at this game, and we'll break it down just a little bit more for everyone watching live. Thank you, everyone who's watching live and listening to us the next day on Spotify, all Apple Music, everything that we go out on that you can follow us on. Next day on Twitter, Facebook, things like that, Instagram. When you look at the defense, Billy, let's start with one of the pass catchers, right? Hopefully their number one option, because whenever he's out on the field, he's a top 10 finish. Talking about your guy out of, Iowa, boy, tight end George Kittle. When he's on the field playing, he finished number 10, number 1, number 4, and number 3. The Seattle Seahawks defense overall is pretty, 15 against the quarterback, 18 against the running back, 11th against wide receivers, but against tight ends, they're number 21. So they're susceptible to the tight end position, which we like with George Kittle because he's really a wide receiver in this offense, right? And so he's finished really well when he's played. I think he's been heating up the game, oh my gosh, the basketball game from back in the 90s, NBA Jam. There we go. You're heating up, right? He's heating up. This is he finished 8 for 12. 12 targets from Brock Purdy last week. When in the 3 previous games where he finished 10, 1, and 4, he's had 17. He's almost doubled his targets. This week, I feel like George Kittle has more of a coming out party than he's already had on Thursday night in that quick turnaround. Everybody else, you're starting your superstars, but George Kittle, he's my tight end 2 on the week. I feel like he's going to light it up. You mentioned Jordan Mason. What's the outlook on CMC for my guys that have CMC, Billy? It's very scary.
Yeah, man, it is kind of a touchy situation, and none of the news has been very good, and a lot of it's been very ambiguous and not a lot of details. We're hearing, tendonitis in both Achilles, things like that. It's looking like he's supposed to be coming back to practice at some point, but no timeline that I'm aware of anyway. But it is a grim situation. I imagine when he comes back, the workload will not be handed to him fully, and Jordan Mason will still be fantasy relevant, but maybe not the workload that he's getting because he's averaging over 20 carries a game, and I imagine CMC will dip into that somewhat. But I don't think they're going to want to ride CMC coming off Achilles tendonitis. They need him healthy for the playoffs.
That's very fair. When we look at JSN, a guy that you've talked about, Brandon's talked about, and DK Metcalf, a guy that we know is a top 10 wide receiver when he's on the field. He's my wide receiver 8 for the week. You look at the San Francisco defense, and they're number 10 against wide receivers. Got lockdown corners, safeties are good, linebackers can play against these guys as well. Should I temper my actions? Should managers temper their actions with JSN and DK Metcalf this week?
It's funny because we've seen them have good games and bad games, whether or not they've had good and bad matchups. But DK Metcalf's had no touchdowns in back-to-back weeks, and I think they kind of get going. This is a matchup. The Niners are a little bit susceptible on the back end of the defense, not weak necessarily, but middling defense where they're not necessarily just shutting people down. And a divisional matchup between two very good teams. I suspect that they, have some things up their sleeve for each other. Jackson Smith-Njigba, yeah, 1 out of his 5 games, he's been inside the top 30. We thought we had the coming out party guys, and we really just have not. But DK, you're probably playing this week because of, where you have him, and no reason to sit him against the 49ers, especially with the way Geno's playing.
Speaking of Geno, unlocking the very first next-gen stat, Billy. Good job. Geno Smith last week ranked 16th for next-gen stat on his ball carrying speed, jetting at over 20 miles an hour on his 32-yarder. Geno Smith has been lighting it up for fantasy managers, making everyone look really, really smart where they drafted him. Like I mentioned, this is the Bo Agrius versus Achilles matchup where little guy Achilles Geno in this one, right, really takes the knockout and beats the San Francisco 49ers, I think. Are you starting Geno with confidence? For me, he's a fringe quarterback 1 this week.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on your situation. If you're riding Geno, yeah, I'm playing him and I'm not too worried about him. But there are some options that would be a little bit better. I mean, maybe Purdy on the other side, a tick or two above in your rankings. But I'm not too worried about Geno. This game could have plenty of points, plenty of fireworks, and Geno could easily have a 3-touchdown game, especially coming off the hangover last week against the New York Giants. So I'm not particularly worried about it. But I mean, if you're a Derek Carr owner, Geno would be a nice fill-in.
Absolutely. You know what else is good for a hangover, Billy? Some fish and chips. You know who's really good at making fish and chips? People in London. We're going to London
Yes.
again. It's going to be an 8:30 game. Jacksonville Jaguars essentially host the Chicago Bears because Jacksonville's pretty much a home team over there at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium of London. The over-under of this game is 45.5. Now, remember, it's a London game, so it's an 8:30 Central game. You got to get those guys into those starting positions, and you got to watch those early alerts. Early alerts will get you bad. So you got to watch this one. For me in this game, though, Billy, it's like the siege of Apollo's temple, where Achilles and his boys just run up on the temple. It's a blitzkrieg. It could get really ugly really fast for these Jacksonville Jaguars, who are essentially at home, and these Bears are coming in. We saw Caleb Williams light it up, right? I think that was his coming out party last week. I was not a Caleb Williams truther, right? I'm more of a J.D.M. Daniels guy, and maybe another guy that we talk about later. But Caleb Williams, your guy, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift, Rome Odunze, everybody was getting a little bit of something last week. We're going to talk about Roschon Johnson as well. But let's digress a little bit. Let's just talk about these quarterbacks, Billy, and what they have to go up against, okay? So Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, who is also an Elite 11 winner. We'll talk about that later, though. But Trevor Lawrence, I know, foreshadowing a little bit. These guys are going up against pretty stout defenses, I guess, more so Trevor Lawrence. He's going up against the number 1 defense over the past 5 weeks against the quarterback position. It's not looking good for Trevor Lawrence. On the other side, Caleb Williams has the opportunity to go up against the worst ranked defense over the past 5 weeks, Billy. What are your thoughts on Caleb Williams and Trevor Lawrence in this game?
Yeah, Caleb Williams, I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of him. He lit up my Colts for 363 a couple weeks ago, and then last week, another 300-yard game and a quarterback 6 fantasy finish. And my guy DJ Moore got him going a little bit. So you'd like to see that Caleb Williams is starting to be able to fit into this offense and use the weapons around him. And I think we're just starting to see it kind of come together a little bit. The happy feet are slowing down, and a little bit of the off schedule stuff isn't forced. He's starting to just play football, and I think that's a big deal. And I think it's a big deal for your guys around him. Trevor Lawrence, a lot different situation, like you said. The Bears defense has been very nasty, especially on the back end, and the Jaguars have not been playing particularly well. But we'll talk about tight ends here in a second. Him getting his back might change the outcome, or I guess the landscape of the offense just slightly.
So, talking about Trevor Lawrence's pass catchers, let's talk about one of the guys, a guy that you've touted very, very highly in the offseason, a guy that's probably on a lot of your dynasty rosters, at least the few that you and I are in, he's on your roster. We're talking about Brian Thomas Jr., the third wheel of the Jaden Daniels, Malik Nabers LSU offense. That offense was phenomenal. And Brian Thomas, like you said, might have been in one of the better positions out of the rookie class just because of the quarterback situation. You knew it was going to be Trevor Lawrence. You know the team is going to build around him. This guy finishes the quarterback 9, or I'm sorry, the wide receiver 9, then follows it up with the wide receiver 8, going 5 for 8 for 122 and 1. Brian Thomas, the real deal. You got Christian Kirk, Giga Maggies, right? Gabe Davis, Brenton Strange, and like you mentioned, Evan Ingram. These are the pass catchers for Trevor Lawrence. On the opposite side, you love Romo Dunes. We talked about, I remember I just listened to our My Guys episode, and you were talking about hyping up Romo Dunes and his combine, things like that. Tell me about these pass catchers, Billy. Who are you starting? Who are you fading? Or not fading, I guess. Who are you a little gun shy on as well?
Well, I am a little bit gun shy on my guy Brian Thomas Jr. just because of this matchup, and really he's been the only guy out there. So I'm really concerned that he's going to have a little bit of a coming back to earth after we saw him. We've seen him kind of come along this year. We have some yards, have some catches, maybe get in the end zone. Last week he put it all together. A good number of catches, yards, scored, all those things. So I think this is a week where he maybe comes back. He's more of a flex guy, wide receiver 3 or 4, with potential to get in the end zone if they start scoring points. But like we talked about, the Bears are relatively rough. And outside of him, Evan Ingram's the only other guy that I'm too terribly worried about. Brenton Strange has been serviceable at the tight end in a fill-in role. However, Evan Ingram back at practice in a limited fashion this week. Hopeful that he can get on the field. He makes this Jags offense just a skosh better. On the other side of the ball, the Bears, they're starting to hum. Cole Kmet, I think he's like number tight end 7 overall right now. It's been a little bit inconsistent, but he's playing good football. DJ Moore, big week last week. We really needed to see that, especially for me, a guy had him ranked a number 6 coming in. And Romo Dunes, we've already seen play good ball, and as this offense gets going, he's seeming like he's going to easily be the number 2 to DJ Moore over Keenan Allen, who we haven't seen get it, going outside of a touchdown. But as we see Caleb Williams develop, these pass catchers are going to get more and more fantasy relevant. DJ Moore, I'm really excited for. I think he's going to be just fine for what I thought he would be coming into the year.
Absolutely. So the defense for the Jags, right, I mentioned is going to get lit up. Your Bears are going to come in. I say your Bears because you're very high on most of these guys. Number 32 against quarterbacks, number 29 against running backs, number 32 against wide receivers. Your guy DJ Moore, Billy, he just had a 5 for 8, 105 and 2 last week. Probably gets in the end zone, like you said.
Yeah, I like that too, man. I really think he does.
Well, let's keep it moving. I like how I favor. So everybody, we were going over the show notes every week, right, to find out what's the lineup, how we got it going on. And I had my Texans favorited on the ESPN app, so they would show up before other teams. So I'm looking through this week, and I'm like, wait, the Texans are number. That's not right. I got to unfavorite this. And then Billy sends it to me, and they are, and I'm like, oh, excellent. ESPN might have heard how much, whatever. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. So we'll talk about this one, right? The Drake May era begins. Per CJ Stroud was the whiteboard quarterback room. He said that Drake May was the most NFL ready quarterback out of this class coming in. We get to see Drake May at Gillette Stadium against CJ Stroud. Going to keep the trend going with the Troy battles. We got Hector versus Patroclus. Patroclus is the cousin of Achilles, where he's very young, going up against a veteran Hector doesn't end up so well for him. I think that the Houston Texans with Miko coming into Gillette against Mayo dominate Mayo, and the Drake May led Pats. Over under on this one is a not very nice 38.5 points with -7 going to Houston. So all signs point to Houston dominating in this game by at least a touchdown. I think that's what that means. No Nico Collins, right? Well, I digress. I'll let Billy talk about that kind of stuff. But Billy, CJ Stroud's my quarterback 6 on the week because of the situation. Drake May coming in. I've got to update my rankings because I did my rankings yesterday, pretty early in the day before all the news came out. So Drake May will move up my rankings because I'll talk about him too in a second. But what do you think about these quarterbacks, Billy?
Yeah, CJ Stroud. I mean, he's had back-to-back weeks over 330 yards, over 250, 3 out of his last 4. He's been cooking, but they haven't been necessarily getting a ton in the end zone. I think that changes this week. The Patriots are kind of a middling defense. They do have Christian Gonzalez, who might be a problem for my guy Stephon Diggs, who I'm tempering expectations on just a little bit there with that situation. However, my guy here, Tank Dell, gives them a little bit different situation, but I'll get to that in a second. The Patriots, however, that offensive line's been absolutely atrocious, and I think that's what ultimately has led to them getting Drake May, aka Josh Allen Jr., in the game. He can move, he can scramble, he can break, arm tackles and sacks and be athletic and really shoot it downfield. I think there's potential that he makes a play or 3 here or there, and but ultimately the Texans defense is really nasty. They get after the quarterback. They do a lot of things with Miko being creative. It's just not going to be a very good day for the Patriots.
Yeah, I don't think so either. The one bright spot that we have is where, sometimes we get to toot our own horns on the show because we have a little show, right? So that means we get to toot our own horns when we're right about some things. Over the off season during our flag planting show, obviously about the Jaden Daniels call that I had, not really call, but just foresight, I suppose. I also had a Konami code light. That would be Drake May. Brandon's not here to stay. Stop it, Pinto. But we'll go into a little lineage, right? Drake May, like Billy said, is a dual threat. At UNC, had 79 total touchdowns, 9,200 total yards. He's a dual threat, like Billy said, at 4.640, drafted the 1.03 in 2024. He has TC McCarthy, a standout from LSU, helping him coaching up this kid in New England with Mayo. And, a little bit of the 23andMe, right? Brothers played baseball, basketball, won NCAA awards. Sister plays as well. Mom and dad met at UNC where she was a soccer player. He was a football player. He then became a Tampa Bay Buccaneer in the NFL. So Drake May's got that pedigree that we really, really like, that we talk about in the offseason when there's really not other things to talk about. And I'll bring that back here, and we'll bring that back in other ways for you at Belly Up Fantasy as well, if you like that kind of thing. But the pass catchers, Billy, well, real quick, the Texans, like you said, are very stout at defense. We know this. I'm not just trying to be a homer on this one. But over the past 5 weeks, they are most susceptible to the quarterback position at number 20 overall. So Drake May, maybe he scampers in for one, gets you that safe floor of 14 points, maybe. So Drake May might be a fringe quarterback one for me if I'm really froggy on it. It's probably going to be like somewhere around 15 or 16, though. The pass catchers, though, for the Patriots kind of blah on for me because I need to see it right. But a guy that you have been touting as the wide receiver one now, Stephon Diggs. How do you feel about him? You said that the Texans have been light in the end zone. Does he catch maybe 2 in the end zone this week?
I actually think the Patriots are going to do what they can to keep Christian Gonzalez on Stephon Diggs, him being kind of that guy that could really take a game over. However, we got our guy Tank Dell back, Xavier Hutchinson, an Iowa State Cyclone, stepping in and playing a nice role for the Houston Texans last week. And I think the Texans have just enough going on the other side of the field with Dalton Schultz and the 2 guys I mentioned there that they're going to be just fine. However, if they can get Stephon Diggs moving into the slot away from Christian Gonzalez, I think they could be in for a rough day from Stephon Diggs as well. He's been playing really well, and no Nico there to really lean on now going on to IR earlier today with a little bit. I'm not sure what the injury was. I did not see. Chris, did you catch?
I did not pay attention to it really. I was kind of just working on my show notes today, and I was like, I don't, maybe Billy will tell me, or I'll see on Twitter or something about that later. Watch it on
I
Sports Center.
I've got it in my head that that's a back, but that's Michael Pittman. But either way, Nico, maybe a hamstring, gonna be gone at least the next 4 weeks. So Stephon Diggs, a guy that's gonna be creeping up the target list on this team. And Tank Dell, guys, he's been really kind of leaving you out to dry. Guys that were really high on him, drafting him as a low end wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and he's not been that at all. But on the other side, Jalen Polk, we're really hoping that he can get going. And Hunter Henry, I think, is worth a play with the young quarterback going to be scrambling out of the pocket. Hunter Henry is that kind of safety valve. He knows how to get to the right spot. He's worth the play as a Patriots pass catcher as well for me. Just with the landscape of the tight end position, we're all scrounging up crumbs right now.
Who's Drake May dapping up right here?
Jacoby Brissett passing the torch right here.
Oh, okay. I didn't know who it was. I was like, maybe it's one of the rookie wide receivers. That would be the guy I would go bet on. How do you feel about the running backs in this game? I'm kind of blah on them. I know that Joe Mixon was still not at practice day. Dameon Pierce was. Cam Akers has been so frustrating for me as well because he's supposed to get the volume and he's just not showing up for me.
Yeah, a guy you talked about last week, Daria Gumbawale, has really been kind of messing up the Cam Akers reunion here, but they've both been relatively fantasy relevant and both in the top 20. I would play them both in this matchup as they, are going to have to be creative away from Stephon Diggs and not having Nico. I think this offense is going to do some, keep it down, run the ball a lot, but not having Joe Mixon. Man, what a little bit of a robbery we're getting right now because that week 1 output was so incredible. But Ramondre, we finally saw kick it into gear last week after the news that he was getting benched. However, that motivation kind of comes and goes, and I just feel like against this Texans offense, rookie quarterback, stack the box, make him beat you kind of day. I think it could be a rough outing, but maybe a handful of checkdowns. But I don't know. I don't know if the rookie gunslinging Drake May does a whole lot of checking down, in my opinion.
I hope not. I hope he just runs all over the Texans defense for just a little while, just enough to make it interesting, to make the Texans have to score a bunch of points. So everyone loves points. Speaking of loving points, the next game will not have any lack of points. This game right here is going to be one of my favorites. It's like going to be on the big screen for sure. Going to watch right in the center. Game has 51 and a half over under. It's the Washington Commanders and the Baltimore Ravens. Oh my goodness. This is Hector versus Achilles in an ultimate battle of good on good. Jaden Daniels, Elite 11 winner. We'll talk about that later, though. He's my quarterback 1. Jaden Daniels, as always. Did you see what Joe Burrow did to this defense last week? Oh my goodness. Joe Burrow did that to the Ravens defense, and Jaden Daniels about to go nuclear on him. The Ravens defense is number 29 against the quarterback the last 5 weeks, and Jaden Daniels has finished 3-18, 3-5-12. Quarterback wanting it up. Number 1 for me this week. Lamar on the opposite side is my quarterback 2 because the Washington Commanders defense is just as bad in terms of quarterback, in terms of wide receiver. So Lamar Jackson should have a day. Billy, you're starting both these guys, right? No questions about it.
Yeah, absolutely. They're both the premier options right now at the quarterback position. Lamar kind of leading the way, and Jaden Daniels kind of doing his best Lamar impression. He's been extremely impressive lately. Both of these guys, you can say as much as you want to. Play them, sit back and enjoy. Turn this game on. As we always talk about red zone, we're going to hear a lot of Scott Hanson talking about Jaden Daniels and the Ravens for sure. So I like this matchup a lot. The running backs, I think all of them get going. The one thing I'm a little concerned about for the Commanders, the Ravens very tough against running backs. among the leaders. However, we saw Chase Brown have a little bit of success against them last week. The Commanders, the only concern for me is that they're kind of doing a running back by committee, and all three running backs are playing well. So I'm playing Brian Robinson. I may be tempering my Austin Eckler, Jeremy McNichols expectations if you've been riding him the last couple weeks, simply because I don't expect there to be a lot of feed to go around, but maybe a short yardage touchdown for Brian Robinson in this one.
Yeah, the Baltimore Ravens number 5 over the last 5 weeks against running back position. So Brian Robinson for me is like a fringe running back too. Jeremy McNichols is like a flex long shot play for me. Austin Eckler, sorry, I don't want anything to do with. But who I do want to deal with is Terry McLaurin, F1. He's a fringe wide receiver 1 for me because the defense over there is number 28 against wide receivers and number 29 against tight ends. So Zach Ertz for me this week. I really like to have a top tight end finish and fall into the end zone or have like 6 or 7 receptions this week. The running backs. Brandon's not here, but son of Texas, Derrick Henry is busting it up and showing everyone it don't matter. He's running back 1 for me this week against this Washington defense that is going to get ran over often on this week. Billy, do you want to have a highlight reel, make yourself big, and talk about someone in this game? Because the points are going to be many. I want you to get a highlight clip. Let's get a highlight clip.
Oh, man. I do have one guy that I like a lot. You mentioned him, Zach Ertz. He had 8 targets last week, and Jaden Daniels missed him on one right down the seam. There was nobody there. And no, I'm not doing all that. But I do think Zach Ertz is being kind of the old head in this offense, is giving Jaden Daniels kind of a utility play that people are underestimating. And as they figure out timing and communication, it's going to get going. We're starting to see that with F1 as well. I really like the play. Back into the Ravens defense, everybody for the Bengals 8 last week. And F1, I think, really getting it going. Jaden Daniels. When I like Flowers as well on the other side against the Commanders. A guy that I'm not usually that hip on, but in a game where there could be a lot of passing, heavy targets usually end up with Zay Flowers having an impressive number of targets. And in a shootout game, I think there could be a big play in there somewhere for him.
Probably means to start Zay Flowers if Billy likes Zay Flowers this week. Not
a
Zay Flowers truther at all.
No, not at all. But this week, I do like the matchup. Commanders weak on the back end, and a little bit of a shootout. They're going to have to keep up. They're at home, but the Commanders are putting a lot of pressure on teams when they play because they just walk down the field. It's very different. The Ravens, I think, are in trouble week 6 here against the Commanders coming in.
Over under on that one is 51.5. I'm going for the over in this one.
Over.
Like overtime, everything. I love it when it goes to overtime because it's like my players get the extra. It's like getting the octopus, things like that. And so I like that extra 5th quarter, going extra a little overtime, even if it's only for like a field goal. It's okay. It's all good. It makes me feel like it's like one of those small moral victories, right?
You're always hoping for like the Demaryius Thomas touchdown, like the 70-yard walk-off.
Right.
Help you win your matchup week, that kind of thing.
This game that you mentioned about walking up and down the field, I think that's what happens in this one with the Philadelphia Eagles coming off the bye week. The Browns locked in their sights. It's keeping the theme going. I'm not going to let it die. It's Paris versus Menelaus in Troy. Paris is the younger brother, Prince of Troy, Orlando Bloom, against the King of Sparta, Menelaus. Watch the movie, you'll understand. But Menelaus he wins, and Jalen Hurts coming in, slugfesting it out against Deshaun Watson. Billy, I mean, we could talk about probably a handful of guys on the Eagles, and I've got one question about the Browns. I'm going to ask the question, and then you can talk about everybody else. Jerome Ford, what am I doing with this guy? Because I've got him, and I don't like him.
I'm not playing him. He's only been in the top 25 one time in his last 3, 10 or fewer carries, and 3 of his last 4. No touchdowns since week 1. It's not been very good other than like one outing this week, and I can't do it either, man. I I hate to grab these fringe running backs because I just don't quite get the opportunity. But a guy that's only getting 10 carries, even if he has, a touchdown, sometimes it's really hard to. What's up, Travis? How you doing, man? It's really hard to lean on a guy that's not going to get you, at least in the mid-teens as far as touches go. And the Eagles, not particularly known for their secondary, however, their front seven tends to shut down the running back position relatively well. So I'm going to avoid Jerome Ford, and I kind of do anyway. So if you have him, maybe you throw him in as a sweetener on a trade with something else and go get yourself a better back.
That's fair. On the Eagles side, I like everybody. What are your thoughts on the Eagles?
Yeah, getting the receiving core back. Devontae Smith's back at practice from the concussion. A.J. Brown back from the hamstring injury that's kept him out since week 1. That bodes well for our boy at the quarterback position, Jalen Hurts. Obviously, I think that does bring Goddard back to earth, but Saquon Barkley has kind of dipped back down as he was kind of the only guy out there healthy other than Dallas Goedert as far as the starters go. I think he's in for a very big day as the Browns have to figure out quick how to stop the leak on the back end that's going to be happening with AJB and Devontae Smith back out there.
You unlocked the second next-gen stat of the night, Billy, when you said Saquon Barkley. He's my running back 2 this week against this defense. But Saquon Barkley during week 4 ranked number 3 per next-gen stats on his 59-yarder scamper, clocking in at over 21 miles an hour. He probably does that again against the Cleveland Browns this week in a matchup where they should just have their playbook wide open and having a little bit of fun this week at home at the Link. We can move on probably to this next matchup, the Arizona Cardinals and the Green Bay Packers. This is a matchup that I know Billy wants to get to because this is another one of those ultimate battles of Hector versus Achilles, over under 48.5 at Lambeau Field. Billy, Jordan Love is making me a truther. He's a quarterback 1 for me this week against Kyler Murray, who's another quarterback 1 for me this week. James Conner right there, the man, the myth, the legend of my running back 4 on the week. Josh Jacobs, my running back 7 on the week. Marvin Harrison, wide receiver 4 for me. Jaden Reed, Billy, here you go. You'll really like this one. Number 2 wide receiver for me on the week. Yes. When we're looking at the tight end position too, I know we're trying to do a little bit different. I'm going out of order right now. That's just because I want Billy to talk about each one of these guys because you can talk about everybody, right? But dubbed here last, I don't know if it was dubbed here for the first time ever, but the first time I heard it, Witchcraft, Tucker Kraft during October is my tight end number 1 with Travis Kelce on bye week this week. Last week he went 4-5 for 88 and 2, doing some spooky business in the end zone. When you look at the Arizona Cardinals defense, they're number 17 against the tight end position. Billy, talk about each one of the positions in a row, and then we'll move on when you're done because I like everybody in this game.
Yeah, running backs. James Conner, my guy. He's been super consistent at the running back position, keeping him in at all times, all year right now for the Arizona Cardinals. Just a staple of consistency for you in your lineup. Josh Jacobs going against the Arizona Cardinals defense is a must play. I think he gets another nice bounce back week as the consistency hasn't been there. Jordan Love, I think, helps that, guys. Arizona also giving up the 4th most points to running backs. And Jaden Reed as the pass catcher. Only the main guy I'm looking at in Green Bay. The rest of the guys are kind of hit and miss. But for me, Jaden Reed, you cannot sit with Jordan Love in the offense. He's been a top 5 wide receiver twice, and a wide receiver 2 the other opportunity, which is just really a touchdown or 2 difference. But Trey McBride that you mentioned, Green Bay gives up the 4th most, has allowed, I guess, the 4th most receptions to the tight end position. That bodes very, very well for him as a guy that you're hoping to get that volume back. And Witchcraft, a must play at tight end, at the tight end position right now. It's just been really, really bleak. Tucker Kraft, a guy that's catching balls and making the most out of it. Kind of a little bit of a Gronkowski feel to him, like wanting to break tackles and be rough and tough, kind of be a blocker, another George Kittle mold type guy. Definitely playing him every week if I have him right now. I mean, if you're getting these guys and at the tight end position, you're getting production most of your league is not, including the Travis Kelce owner. So it's very, very nice to see that happening. But Other than that, I mean, there's not a whole lot else happening. I guess Marvin Harrison, you're definitely playing, but the other catchers in Arizona, not anything I'm necessarily jumping to get. Low level flex guys outside of Marv.
Yeah, Marvin Harrison finishes as a wide receiver 20 and 26 after the wide receiver one finish that he did. Does the squeaky wheel get the grease again this week in this huge matchup? I really, really hope so for Marv. A game that we've talked about, kind of foreshadowing to. Look at that. That's slick production work right there with Spencer Rattler on there. Like I said, my rankings need to be updated, everybody. I didn't even have all these quarterbacks changes. I did it the other day. But we've alluded to, look at the son of Texas right there, Mike Evans, gig him right there. But Elite 11 winners, okay? Named a couple during the show. Spencer Rattler is also one of those guys. He was drafted in the 5th round overall, 150 to the Saints in the 2024 draft. A guy that we thought was pro ready. We saw what he did at OU, at South Carolina. Go Gamecocks. You know, the kid in high school was a dual threat quarterback as well. Over 10,000 yards in college, 77 touchdowns. Yes, like and subscribe to Belly Up Sports on YouTube, please, everybody. He was also, I'm a movie guy, Billy. He was also featured in Peter Berg's documentary on Netflix, QB1 Beyond the Lights. He comes up against it's an NFC South battle. He hosted at home, right? Was it Caesars Superdome? 41 over-under, so not too exciting, but, not one of the 30-point games, so you like that. What do you think about Spencer Rattler, Billy? Because we know if you got Baker Mayfield, you're probably firing him up.
Yeah, I mean, I think Spencer Rattler is going to be just fine. The Buccaneers are particularly weak against the quarterback position. They've allowed the third most passing yards, and we know that Olave and Rashid Shaheed. There's a couple tight ends. Alvin Kamara obviously is the young quarterback's best friend. I think that this is a defense that can be had enough for Spencer Rattler to get into a groove and at least be serviceable. If you're in a super flex league, or maybe you had Derek Carr, and obviously you might be rostering him in a dynasty league where you get to plug Spencer Rattler in. I would be excited. I think he's a gunslinger. There's also nothing on tape about the packages or anything that they want to use with this kid, and there's nothing about him that says the arm talent isn't what it needs to be. So for me, Spencer Rattler is a very exciting prospect. He was, on track to be a number 1 overall pick at Oklahoma before Caleb Williams came in the game and ripped the ball out of that dude's arm. Remember that? That's when it all, kind of went off track for Spencer Rattler. Went to South Carolina and still played good football, guys. I think he's in a great situation on a quality ball club, and he might have a little bit more live arm than we've seen Derek Carr at this stage in his career. It could be fun to watch the Saints. This might turn into a shootout, and we might have a fan favorite by the end of it. Really rooting for Spencer Rattler. Obviously, Baker, you're playing the surrounding cast around him. These guys are beasts. You got to have Baker in. He's a back end quarterback one for me as well.
Absolutely, Billy. What's going on with the running back position in Tampa Bay? Bucky Irving, Rashid White. I've got them kind of back to back in my rankings, 21 and 29. But Bucky slowly becoming a fan favorite. The Winter Soldier is what I'm calling him. If you like Captain America, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I like Bucky Irving as well, but the volume hasn't been there. He's barely getting around 10 touches when he is getting touches. Rachaad White, a bit concerning for me as well. He's had 10 carries one time. He's only 3 times in 2023 did he have, that few of carries. So, I mean, already he's had over 10 carries just once, but only 3 times in 2023, it was, 10 carries or fewer. That's really where the big difference has been in the production. We saw him be a top running back last year, middle end RB1, but the volume hasn't been there. Those carries are going to Bucky Irving. Now they're both being a little bit productive, but it's just rough trying to figure out who might get the carries that matter, who's going to get in the end zone. But it's really pointing to a lack of volume for me. So I'm kind of tempering expectations where I have Rachaad White. Lucky for me, I have some guys to play over him, but it's not that exciting. But he's still the lead guy, still getting the more important work. But Bucky Irving really chopping his value in half.
Now, Let's flip to the other side real quick and go to the pass catchers I want to talk about with Rashid Shaheed. We saw last week it just takes one play, and then they did that big old thing on him, separation, all this kind of cool stuff, right? Spencer Rattler has that arm that can do that as well. I'm going to step on Travis's toes a little bit, everybody. If you know who Travis Sumter is, one of our senior guys over here, our lead content or our head of content and community guy. It's a family atmosphere over here, so he's toned me down a little bit. I can't curse anymore. There's no more beer. There's nothing like that. I'm sorry, everybody, if that's what you were liking before. That's not what we're about now. Sorry. Family show. But Travis Sumter does a great job on Sunday mornings with the start sits, leading right up to kickoff. But I'm going to ask Billy right now because I'm in a situation where I've got Rachaad White and Rashid Shaheed on a team. I'm looking at my flex, Billy. Who do you like better in my flex? It's PPR. And yes, everybody, I'm asking for my own personal gain. So I'm the host. I can do that.
I'm way in on Rashid Shaheed, man. He was a favorite of mine coming into the summer. I went and targeted him in many a trades dynasty season. But I'm confident in those guys, and here's why. The Tampa Bay has allowed the most receptions to wide receivers and the second most yards. I think this is an opportunity for Olave to kind of get to play a little bit more college-style ball, and obviously Rashid Shaheed being the deep threat with the cannon that we know Spencer Rattler has. It's very, very exciting to see him in there. Not that Derek Carr is afraid to throw it deep, but Spencer Rattler's got that thing in him, you know?
So that's, I'm gonna get off topic. Everyone knows I like to go off on a tangent and I like movies. I just watched it's not, I don't know if it's brand new, but it's new to me. It's on Netflix. It's the new Madea, Tyler Perry Madea movie. And there's a character that Tyler Perry plays, Uncle Joe. And that he would say something like that. Uncle Joe's like one of my favorites on the show. So I really like that. I didn't even see, you got me off topic. This game for me is like the Greeks versus the Trojans. Billy mentioned how it could be a deep, like it's low over under, right? Defense, offense. We'll see what happens in this one. In the movie, the Trojans beat back the Greeks to the sea, but you know we all know how that ends up with the Trojan horse at the end. So not too good for them. We'll see what happens. But let's keep it moving, right? We're making pretty good time. We're still in the 12 o'clock games. We're right at 45 minutes for everyone who is live with us. Thank you so much for being with us. Everyone who's going to watch us or listen to us later, thank you too. We very much appreciate it. Billy's Lucas Oil Stadium. They're not going to be there. They're going to travel to Tennessee. They're going to Nissan Stadium, right? The Tennessee Titans coming off that bye and having full focus onto these Indianapolis Colts in the AFC South divisional matchup. 2-3, 1-3. Over under on this one's 43.5 with a -1 to Indianapolis, Billy, coming into Tennessee. You like that, I guess, right? But sleepy Joe Flacco, not so sleepy. Like 1,000,000 yards, throwing with the best, looking like Jordan Love out there with and Caleb Williams, boy. They've got some high completions out there, lots of yards, lots of touchdowns. You know, Joe's slinging it. You kind of like that in Indy. For the pass catchers, not so much for your A-Rich shares, but for your pass catchers. And on the opposite side, you got Will Levis. It's not looking so good for Will Levis on that side of the ball. Out of these two guys, right, we can probably just talk about everybody too with the pass catchers because we mentioned Michael Pittman earlier. He's going to be out for a little bit and shed some light on that with that back injury. I know you're not a doctor or expert, but I know that you're a Colt, so you probably follow him more than I do being a Texans fan. Alec Pierce, could he be the wide receiver one? Josh Downs, is he the wide receiver one in PPR? Does Adonai Mitchell step up? I don't know what's going to go on. Tell me what's going to go on. What's going to happen? I'm scared about these Colts, but there's so much fantasy potential with Joe at the helm.
Yeah, definitely a better situation with Joe Flacco under center, but it got word today that A-Rich is day to day, so there is a little bit of uncertainty with the passing offense with A-Rich under center. So I'm personally hoping that Joe Flacco goes, let's let A-Rich get healthy. But Josh Downs, 17 catches, 151 yards and a touchdown in the last two games, damn near the same stats, but 11 catches, buck 50, one touchdown. over the last 2 games for Michael Pittman as well. So just to show you the kind of workload that's available, it's almost half of the main wide receiver production that Michael Pittman has put out with Joe Flacco. It was abysmal with Anthony Richardson, but I do think that it gets better with Flacco under center, obviously, but we'll see what they kind of tend to do. No practice for Jonathan Taylor right now. Still looks like he's still going to miss some time. It's a very ambiguous situation for my Colts. Probably looking they're gonna limp in to Tennessee, unfortunately.
So you mentioned Jonathan Taylor and the Colts running back situation. Doesn't unlock anything yet, but Trey Sermon, oh my goodness. You got Trey Sermon on your roster, and you've got, let's say, Tyrone Tracy Jr., who shined last week in that position. Are you holding on to Trey Sermon? Are you going to go try to go get Tyrone Tracy? Again, everybody who's watching, I'm doing this for my own personal gain because I'm the host. I can do that. And Billy is AKA the Dragon, and I take his wisdom and I use it to help me win championships. So, Billy, help me right now. Don't worry about everyone watching, just me.
Yeah, man, Tennessee Titans defense are pretty stout. I'm not that high on Trey Sermon. It was kind of, underwhelming last week, and we saw the other running back get a little bit of change too. So, for me, who is the other option you had there? I'm sorry.
Tyrone Tracy Jr.
Yes, Tyrone Tracy, the Iowa Hawkeye, former wide receiver turned running back at Purdue. Last week had a really nice outing. We'll talk about him a little bit later. I would be going and picking him up, you guys. Far outperformed Devin Singletary. Very, very versatile ball player. Was incredible at Purdue. I'd like to plug him in this week over several options. I think it's going to be very good, very quick there in New York.
Excellent. I just picked him up live on air in one of my home leagues against my Kappa Sig brothers. Go A to B, guys. Thank you, Billy, for helping me with that. Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, real quick, Adonai Mitchell, this trio of wide receivers. Do you think there's a clear-cut one out of the three?
Josh Downs really been performing well with Joe Flacco. A little bit of a favorite as far as the targets go. I like AD Mitchell to come in and just have a bigger role without Michael Pittman. And honestly, I just really not sure what's going to go on with the wide receiver core outside of that. If A-Rich plays, you almost can't play any of these guys until you see it. Unfortunately, it's been really that bad from a passing game perspective. Michael Pittman, you really couldn't plug in at all until Joe Flacco got under center. So we really need that to happen. Alec Pierce, a guy that I expect to get more targets, a deep threat. Joe Flacco found him a couple times for big ones, but doesn't seem to be the guy that Joe Flacco looks for a lot. So PPR, decent floor. Josh Downs seems to be the guy to put your pin in right now, and we really got to hope that Joe Flacco plays for fantasy purposes.
So my game theory would change depending on who would play. If Joe Flacco plays, it's Achilles versus. This is going back to the movie, Billy. This has nothing to do with fantasy football right now. I'm sorry. It's Achilles versus Bo Agrius if Joe Flacco plays. Joe Flacco being Achilles. So there's that. We can move on. Making great time, everybody. We just made it to the 3:00 games. Just made it. Oh my goodness! It's AFC West. Wait. It's both AFC West, correct? I have AFC West and NFC South. I was incorrect. So, sorry, everybody. My show notes are incorrect. I have to go back and correct that for everybody. Sorry. 3:05 on CBS, right? There's Los Angeles Chargers versus the Denver Broncos in Power Field at Mile High Stadium. A beautiful 69 and cloudy in Denver. The Los Angeles Chargers, coming off that bye, got their eyes locked on the division rivals. This game right here is, as most movies have, they're still great in their own ways. They have their highlights. It's a filler fight for me and Troy. It's 35.5 over under. We make the joke about the Red Zone channel. This game, hopefully J.K. Dobbins for me gets in the end zone, gets the highlights 3 times, and we call it a day. J.K. Dobbins in this game for me is the only highlight, Billy. You know I love him, son of Texas, out of LaGrange, Texas. Go Leopards. J.K. is my running back 5 on the week. Call it bias, call it whatever you want. It's the only way that I feel that they're gonna come away with a win. It's gonna be a slugfest. The defenses are good, but the Broncos are, I guess, easiest on the running back position. So for me, JK, running back 5, call it crazy. What do you think about this game, Billy?
Yeah, as far as the quarterbacks and pass catchers go, nobody's been terribly productive. Herbert hasn't even been playable, not one outing yet this season. Bo Nix doing his thing as a rookie, playing winning football, but it hasn't been fantasy relevant. This is going to be a really good football game. Not very good for us fantasy fans. They're both top 5 against quarterbacks and running backs. You mentioned J.K. Dobbins. I kind of like Javonte Williams on the other side as well. 2 straight games, 13 carries or 60+ yards. He's had 4+ catches in 3 of his last 4 games as well. And Bo Nix, 3 rushing touchdowns this year. That's a little nice little bonus keeping the floor there. So if you're having to plug him in, maybe he helps you out as far as that go. But man, what a rough fantasy matchup. But going to be a hell of a football game. And both teams playing a little bit better football than we expected. The Broncos to be, 3-2, winning some of these matchups. They're a very, very tough team, and they're playing just smart, dink and dunk, Sean Payton football.
Yeah, I wrote down defensive battle, JK, star. That's it. So
AFC West next.
AFC West. Oh, here we go, though. The surprisingly wildly good Steelers, fantasy relevant Steelers at 3-2, going to Allegiant Stadium at 2-3 Raiders. The over-under on this game, though, Billy, 36.5. For me, it's another filler fight. Justin Fields, another Elite 11 winner with that whole, crop of guys. Also on a bye week, Matt Stafford, Elite 11 winner, son of Texas, Matt Stafford. Right there, too, Billy, for you. But here, this is another changing of the guard. Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, a fan favorite, a belly-up favorite from back in the day with Tom Billy as well. Gardner Minshew, we got the stat on him. He has led the most fourth quarter comebacks in the NFL. So we know that he's a game winner. He's a gamer. Aiden O'Connell, though, coming out. Tell me about Aiden O'Connell, because we know if you've got Justin Fields, you're very, very happy with him. He's a fringe quarterback one for me. And we know that the Vegas Raiders are easily torn up by quarterbacks as they're number 21 against quarterback. But tell me about Aiden O'Connell. Do you have anything on Aiden O'Connell? Sorry if I'm putting you on the spot.
Because I'm not very excited about playing him, and I wouldn't want to unless I absolutely had to. I did have some Gardner Minshew shares, but it hasn't been very good either. But we've seen Aiden O'Connell start and be semi-decent. I think the Raiders are really just searching for, anything right now. But, against this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, this is a very, very, very poor matchup to have to start Aiden O'Connell, 1 for the Raiders and 2 for your fantasy team. Steelers probably a top-notch start against Aiden O'Connell. They're going to get after him. Sack, fumble, interception style game for them. I just see this being very, very ugly for Aiden O'Connell. So Penn State product, I believe. He's been around a little while with the Raiders, kind of throughout the thing. Kind of, in my mind, a similar guy to like a Jarrett Stidham. He's a quality player. He's just not super, super talented. But I think there's consistency there, knowing the playbook, and just not a lot of help, unfortunately, against the Steelers defense. That's pretty tough.
So do you downgrade Brock Bowers? He's a tight end 1 for me this week. He's tight end number 5 in my rankings. I might have to downgrade him now with Aiden O'Connell coming into the fold as I did these rankings on Tuesday. I'm just sorry. I also have, I think I'm correct. I'm not 100% sure, but the Pinto show notes say that Aiden O'Connell was a 4th rounder, number 135 overall in the 2023 draft, but he was a walk-on at Purdue.
Ooh, okay, yeah,
Boilermaker.
about that. Yep.
Was there another famous Boilermaker quarterback from back in the day? Is that Drew Brees?
Kyle Orton, Drew Brees, both of them.
Drew
Kyle
Brees,
Orton,
son of Texas.
Boy.
Oh, see, we tie again. Everybody who's seen the show knows that we have banter about that. So we'll talk about that later. But okay. Yeah.
Brock Bowers, I mean, I am downgrading my skosh because I'm just expecting that Aiden O'Connell's not that good. But, hey, Gardner Minshew wasn't a super exciting option at quarterback either, and he's got Brock Bowers to that tight end 1. He is probably their most talented pass catcher. So, for me, I'm not like not starting him or looking for an excuse to play somebody else. I'm just maybe tempering, my personal expectations. But there's no reason to think that he doesn't see, 6, 8, 10 targets because, who else is Aiden O'Connell really going to be going to, especially with a pass rush in his face all day with TJ Watt.
Before we move on to the next ultimate battle, because that was a filler, these other guys are an ultimate battle in a dynamic duo. Travis Sumter and Siege. The Siege. Guys, you got to come watch this show. They do on Tuesdays. It's Siege and Destroy. Travis Sumter, our lead, our head of content, vibe check, community guy, keeping Pinto in line, things like that. And the Siege, our newest analyst. He also writes articles for us. Go check it out on our website, bellyupfantasy.com. They do a buy, sell, what's hot, what's not, whatever questions you have Tuesdays. Go check it out. Siege and Destroy. Absolutely phenomenal. Titans in the industry. Go check it out. Just like our next game, Titans in the industry of fantasy football. All up and down this one, Billy. We've got the Detroit Lions and the Dallas Cowboys, I believe. Over under a high 52.5. America's game of the week, most likely. You got Dak Prescott and Jared Goff, both quarterback ones for me. You've got Amon-Ra, your guy. CeeDee Lamb, my guy. Both wide receiver ones on the week. Look at that. Amon-Ra right there. CeeDee, you love to see it. Amon-Ra for me is number 5 on the week. CeeDee, number 1. I'll talk about CeeDee when we get to that. But these quarterbacks, Billy, Jared Goff. Also, I'm going to plug the other thing, right? Fantasy in a feature. We're got that coming out. The second episode, spoiler, it's going to be Friday Night Lights. But like Jared Goff, right before the bye week, hit that reception touchdown, like Mike Winchell in Friday Night Lights. I right wiggle 87 switchblade, the state championship, scoring the 6. Jared Goff did that as well too. Production's got me all wild because I don't even know what's going on right now. There we go.
I lost our screen where I don't know what happened where we were down here a little bit. I apologize, man.
That's what happens when you go live, right? You don't know what's going to happen. My show notes could get crazy. I could go on mute. We could talk about Texas and Iowa for 23 minutes, like 23 and me. But we're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions, right? Detroit, one pride, Dallas Cowboys nation. Billy, what do you got? Firing everyone up, right? This is crazy. This is a crazy fun game.
Yeah, this is one of those ones I'm taking the over, the Detroit -3, over under 52, a pretty high over under, but I still see a ton of points. Amon-Ra St. Brown being a little bit underwhelming so far at the wide receiver position, but I think he's going to get on track going here pretty good. CeeDee Lamb moving up last week from number 12, wide receiver number 10, starting to creep up in that upper echelon of guys. And we saw Jalen Tolbert kind of break out a little bit last week, a guy that's getting a decent amount of targets. That's a little bit, it's positive movement for the Cowboys offense as they haven't had much going on. Ferguson, top 8, 3 straight games at the tight end position. And Tolbert, like I was talking about, 5+ targets in 3 of his last 5 games. That's pretty decent for a wide receiver too. If you're plugging in some flex plays, maybe you've got some guys banged up, bye week issues, what have you. So on the other side of the ball, we haven't seen Sam Laporta really get going this week. Not sure we do now. I think this is more of a Jameson Williams firepower, go get it. But the Cowboys not giving up a ton of receptions to the running back position either. So Jahmyr Gibbs, good thing he's been getting mid-teens for the carries because, literally second fewest receptions to running backs allowed by the Cowboys. So I think Monty and Gibbs both get it going running. Maybe not that, receiving out of the backfield work for Gibbs that we expect, but maybe that's a positive for Laporta a little bit.
Put a pin in Laporta for just a second because we'll talk about tight ends. You unlocked the third next-gen stat of the night, Billy, when you talked about wide receiver Jameson Williams. JMO during week 4, right before the bye week, ranked 11 per next-gen stats on the 70-yard TD, going over 20 miles an hour. Jameson Williams, I believe, gets in the end zone. I think you believe that too this week. There's points aplenty in this game. We talked about wide receivers for a little bit. The Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? He's got to get it going this week. Like you said, he's I think you ranked him higher than all of us during the beginning for our consensus rankings. The Dallas Cowboys defense, we know what they can do. We watch them here. We watch them at my house all the time. We know what they're capable of. That being said, we're not going to talk about anything bad because Travis Sumter would not like that. It's a family show, right? CeeDee Lamb on the opposite side, though, going up against the Detroit Lions defense. They're 31st against the wide receiver position. CeeDee Lamb was upset last week at Dak Prescott. He finished the wide receiver 42 last week, going 5 for 9 for 62 and only one carry for 2 yards on the ground. This is a get-right game for CeeDee Lamb against this porous secondary with Arnold Branch, Carlton Davis III. Like, Carlton Davis is probably going to shadow CeeDee Lamb, or CeeDee Lamb's probably going to find Carlton Davis and line up on Carlton Davis and just burn this cat is what's going to happen. I'm sorry. That's probably going to get fined from Travis about that one. Sorry, guys. But this is a Hector versus Achilles ultimate battle, 52.5-point over-under, Billy. Like I said, I'm probably going to get fined on this one, so let's move on to the next game. The next game, the Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you need to do? I know I didn't say anything about tight end because I think you nailed it all.
No, man, we're all good. Here we go.
We're all good. 46.5 over under. I know. I'm sorry. I'm nervous. I'm going to get fined, so I had to keep it going. You know, I didn't want to keep the mindset going. Sorry, everybody. Shout out to Mike Brown.
Just text right now. There
oh my goodness! See, everybody.
No,
That's what happens. That's what happens. That's what happens. Okay. The Atlanta Falcons are 3-2. The Panthers are 4-1. It's an NFC South battle. We're gonna go to Bank of America Stadium. Speaking of Bank of America, did you see the outage Bank of America had? That's absolutely wild. Hopefully, they don't have an outage on Sunday. But over under 46.5 points. Negative -6 the Atlanta Falcons. Who had a tremendous showing. Everyone had a day. It was awesome. That 700 yards for everybody, touchdowns aplenty. And then you look around and what's happening to Bijan. Bijan, come on, man. This week for Bijan, Billy, is going to be phenomenal. I know I keep saying it. I know I rank him number 1 every week. But right now, he's my number 3. He's a top 3 play because Saquon, Derrick Henry, you got, Saquon and Derrick and Saquon, and then Bijan for me, number 3. But going up against the 31st ranked defense against running backs, I think Bijan is the squeaky wheel. I think everyone sees it. Everyone's talking about it. Kirk Cousins had to have the day that he had, right, to shut everybody up. Now it's Bijan's turn, Billy. You got Bijan Robinson. I'm super upset because I have a team, Billy, that has a Bijan Robinson and Travis Etienne on it. I am super upset with my running backs right now. And Travis Etienne plays at 8:30 in the morning in London. Bijan plays against this defense over here at 3. It's one of those games, okay, as a fantasy manager, everyone who's watching, you understand what I'm talking about. As a fantasy manager, when you have that early game like on Thursday or at 8:30 in the morning and you just put up a dud, a goose egg, and you just got to look at that thing until, the games are finished and you have the late, okay, so I'm sorry. I digress. But I'm the host. I get to do that. So I've got an 8:30 game with Travis Etienne, then I've got a 3:25 game with Bijan, who both possibly put up 0 points for me in this matchup, and it's terrifying. Billy, you can mute me. You can do whatever you want. You can talk about this game because there's fantasy points aplenty. This is a Paris versus Menelaus game. I think the favorite dominates and wins, and the Atlanta Falcons winning.
Yeah, I do too. I'm taking the Falcons, that -6 over a 47. I'll take that as well. Bijan, like you said, I'm in for the boom, man. Panthers are the second worst team against the running backs as far as fantasy points go, and I think we're due for a bounce back for us Bijan believers, truthers, owners, whatever you want to call us, after the 7-carry outing that was last week. Both teams pretty tough against wide receivers, but Deontay, a guy that I'm looking at, I really like him with Dalton under center. He's been getting a nice target share there. And Leggett, another guy I'm eyeballing for a big play if this game starts to get wide open and scoring. He was a full practice today getting back under it. But That's about all I'm really looking at. Chuba Hubbard, not a guy that I own much of anywhere. I'm not super high on him. I know you do. Beat me with him a couple weeks ago, and man, he's just been better every week. And I think some of us are hoping that Jonathan Brooks comes back and turns into a good, nice running back too. But Chuba, the way he's playing, I'm not sure they're taking him off the field anytime soon. A guy that has to be in your lineup right now.
Yeah, he finishes the running back 4, the running back 7, the running back 8. Last week going 13 for 97 and 1, adding 4 for 4, -2, but you like him in PPR, right? The Atlanta Falcons stout against the running back position, number 6 against the running back position. They're number 17 against the quarterback, number 21 against the wide receiver. So Deontay Johnson, Xavier Leggett, XL as we call him, right? Extra large as we've dubbed him. Not dubbed, but we call him that. Fringe wide receiver 1, fringe wide receiver 2 for me. On the opposite side, your guy Darnell Mooney, boy, showing up, showing off, showing out like Dallas Carter, Go Red Storm in the Friday Night Lights movie. Boy, Darnell Mooney, 9 for 60 for 105 and 2. Billy needs to take. I don't know. Billy doesn't talk too much about his hits because he always hitting, but like God dog, man. Drake London, right, having the wide receiver 1 finish that we know he's going to have. He's wide receiver 1 for me this week as well. Wide receiver 12. But yeah, let's move on. We're making really good time. This is awesome.
Yeah, man.
Ooh, this one's a good one. 47 and a half. Ooh, I hope Malik Neighbors plays. Let's slow it down. Let's slow it down on this one. We got a little bit of time.
LSU, single digit Unos.
Golly, like you could just see prime time.
I got one for you, Chris. We got a Malik Neighbors trade question here, so I've been waiting to throw this up.
Wait a second, here, but... Shaka. Okay, real quick. This is probably okay. This is what is okay. Here you go, Billy. This is where my pop culture comes in. That is from the Will. Well, that picture right there is from the Will Ferrell adaptation of the land that time. The time was it the land that time is lost. The time lost land. Hold on, I don't know. The land of lost time. It was Will Ferrell adaptation. It has Red from Pineapple Express. It was a book and it was a movie before, obviously, but that's from a movie. I know that Chaka is one of the characters in the movie. Is funny character, but yes. Okay, so back to that, right? Trade Malik Neighbors.
Trade Neighbors, Ingram, Zach Moss. I'm assuming that's Tyreek, Justice Hill, Mixon,
Tyreek,
Devontae, Kittle, 3 wide receiver PPR.
So in Kittle, redraft, Ingram, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I would do that too.
I mean, that's just so much stuff over there for what I'm looking at as Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I'm winning now, Mixon's going to be back healthy here pretty quick.
Right.
He's going to be back banging. Hopefully, Davante Adams finds a new home. Not the Saints right now.
Real quick, let's play devil's advocate, right? For the worst case scenario. I like to do that. You've got Kittle, who is a top. He's my tight end 2 this week, only because it's October. If it was September or November, and this was going on, Kittle will be my tight end 1, but Witchcraft is my number 1. Kittle, number 2 tight end, so top 3 play. Tyreek Hill, I know he's on a bye week this week, and you don't have Devontae Adams, so you're getting Kittle this week. You might not have any of those other players on the opposite side play, right? That's worst case scenario. Next, Tua comes back possibly week 8, week 9. Hill's great. Joe Mixon comes back next week. He's getting 30 carries and he's great. Devontae Adams finds a home in KC and is great. And George Kittle is great. You get Malik Neighbors, who is great. And you have Evan Ingram, who is great. And you have Zach Moss, who is great. The upside of the other side is just so much better for me, too. I think the other side's winning. I could be wrong. Brandon's probably saying, no, get Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, see, Zach Moss for me is just a throw-in. Evan Ingram, you're ridding yourself of the injury problem that he is right now. Malik Neighbors, obviously, top-notch wide receiver. Go ahead, Chris.
It's from the Big Bang Theory, right? Point of query, if you're in the mindset of I want the best fantasy asset, I want to get that best fantasy asset. Malik Neighbors, for me, is probably the best fantasy asset in this trade, right? So if you're deep at the position, I guess it's not that bad. But I guess I need to see roster construction, and that's a lot of different options, I guess, for you as well.
Yeah. Surface value, win now. The Hill, Mixon, Adams, Kittle far outweighs the Neighbors, Ingram, Moss to me. I'm obviously not a Moss guy, but that's just how I feel about it. Decent trade, fun talk. Kevin Wilson, whether Neighbors plays or not, Slayton's a go this week. And he says, give the proper credit for the term witchcraft. Kevin, we have been calling you out all week, man, all over Twitter, letting everybody know that you came here for that name. We've just been beating it up and using it a bunch since we loved it so much, man.
I never say anything that I've created. Most likely. I don't know if that's true or not. That's probably not true. Did we finish this one though? I don't even know
No,
if
we
we
haven't
finished
really
this one.
haven't talked about it yet. We got a little trade question, slowing her down here. You wanted to do so. I thought,
that's
hey,
right.
trade question.
That's fair. So Joe Burrow, awesome last week. 5 touchdowns last week. Almost 400 yards last week. 30 for 39 last week. On fire. He's my quarterback 4 this week. Okay. Opposite side, Daniel Jones. I don't want to do anything with Daniel Jones. Joe Burrow, though, he's gold. Primetime Joe Burrow, Joe Cool against this like they're 1-4. The Giants are 2-3, Billy. This is gonna be a game where Ja'Marr Chase and Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and whatever running back is out there is gonna light it up. All the guys on the Bengals side for me are fringe ones, right? Ja'Marr Chase, my wide receiver 3 this week. He goes up against the 15th ranked defense. Last week, he put up 2 touchdowns, almost 200 yards. I think he has a similar week this week against this defense, who he's probably going to get what? Banks? The bank shadow on him? I don't even know if they shadow in New York. What's the defense? 4 DBs in a run-heavy box. Not doing so well as the number 13, I guess, against running backs. But what do you think, Billy? Who you got?
You know, I actually do like Daniel Jones. He's been a quarterback 1 3 out of the 5 weeks. Has been inside the quarterback 2 range all the time. Nice consistency we haven't seen from him. And Cincinnati has allowed the second most points to quarterbacks and the most touchdown passes. And that to me is a recipe for a little bit of fantasy success from a quarterback 2 standpoint. Maybe a high end quarterback 2, back end quarterback 1 possibly. Chase Brown, very hard for me to sit. No Zach Moss, or at least being a little bit banged up. Also, seeing his workload increase and his productivity as well. And Tyrone Tracy on the other side of the ball, the former Hawkeye, 18 carries, 129 yards last week in a spot start in relief of Devin Singletary. And how do you look back from that? That's been the most fantasy production they've had for quite a while at the running back position since Saquon Barkley, probably a handful of years ago even.
Tyrone Tracy, running back 18 last week. 18 for 129 and 1? Or no, just 129. No touchdowns on the
No tug. Yep, no tug.
So against this defense, who's number 20 against the running back position, Billy, if Devin Singletary is out, like you mentioned earlier, you should be running to the waiver wire to go get Tyrone Tracy. Junior.
Yes, I agree. This is a week that you should be plugging him into a flex spot and getting away with it and liking it. Kevin saying that this is a week to start Daniel Jones. It has to be now. But I do like Tyrone Tracy. I'm plugging him in everywhere. I went to the waiver wire, snagged him in the few places I wasn't already rostering him, hoping for this opportunity. Just knowing the player, the versatile guy that he is. Once he gets on the field, I knew he would be very productive. So looking forward to playing him as well. But Cincinnati allowing the 9th most fantasy points to wide receivers, and Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson are both target hogs. 8+ targets, 6+ targets, 4 out of 5 games. And I think that the worst case scenario for Wan'Dale, he has like a high end wide receiver 3 value for you in this matchup. So definitely a guy that you're plugging into your flex with confidence, and you're gonna, get decent production just because they're really only throwing to Neighbors and Wandale in that offense. Kevin likes Steve Slayton this week a little, or not, sorry, not Steve Slayton, Darius Slayton. Steve Slayton, our West Virginia connection. That's been on my mind ever since I pulled Gino up. But Darius Slayton a go this week for Kevin Wilson. I'm sure he'll be talking about him on his Friday Start Sit article that comes out Friday mid-afternoon.
Do you do you think Malik Neighbors goes right? He definitely goes right. If he
Yeah,
doesn't, Wandale
sounds
Robinson is like
Yeah, sounds like Malik's gonna play, which is good news. It's a concussion, so it's not like he's trying to get back from like a knee injury, ankle, or something that might be slowing him down. So I guess it's optimistic that he'll be back from that concussion. But Wandale, a play for me either way. Obviously, without Neighbors, he becomes a little bit better just because of the volume. But I actually like his production a little bit better with Malik Neighbors on the field with him.
earlier when I was looking at it, it said Zach Moss was out. It said Mike Gesicki was out as well. Your guy Eric All comes into spotlight on prime time. If Gesicki is out, no Travis Kelce, Eric All spot start for you.
Yeah, could be. I mean, there's not a whole lot happening at the tight end position. I mean, maybe you have somebody that's banged up. You're not lucky enough to get yourself some witchcraft. Thank you, Kevin Wilson, for that. But I think Eric All is a talented guy. He seems to fit in the Cincinnati offense a little bit better than the other guys, but it's still a real shot in the dark, Chris. I mean, you're really hoping that he can get, 5 or 6, 7 targets. I just don't know if that's, a lock or even something you want to be betting on, but a guy that maybe you're eyeballing if you're in trouble at the tight end spot.
Yeah, this game for me is like it's another one that I mentioned earlier. It's Achilles and his homeboys running up on the beach and sieging Apollo's temple. I think the Bengals come out fast and furious and they score a whole bunch of points, and then you get a whole bunch of garbage time from the New York Football Giants as you normally do. But in fantasy, we love that. It helps you win. Absolutely love it. And it's one of those things where you hate as the opponent just seeing Wandale Robinson with 14 targets on you on Sunday Night Football. Just like absolutely hate, just makes you like turn it off at halftime and you're like just upset for the rest of the night. You're just grumpy, walking around, eating the sandwich, eating some Ruffle chips, drinking water. You're just like, this doesn't even taste good.
Yeah.
Well, Monday night game, we're trying to get this under 90 minutes. That'd be phenomenal under 90 minutes. This one, though, Robert Saleh out of there. You got the new interim head coach, the defensive coordinator. This game for me, the Bengals. I'm not sorry. Wow, that was really bad. I was looking right at the Bills. I don't even know why I said Bengals. Probably because James Cook is right there. James White, I don't even know who he is. Sorry, Brandon. I know that you can hear this right now. Everyone who's watching right now, the slander's real. James Cook, though, okay. The Buffalo Bills 3-2 go to the Jets at 2-3. It's an AFC East game at MetLife, I believe. It's gonna be 67 and clear on the Monday night on ESPN. Watch the Manning cast if you like that. Did Bill Belichick get a forever spot on that or something?
Yeah, he
I just
must have. He just comes on there so he can talk over everybody the whole time and make
oh
Peyton act
my
mad, but
goodness.
it's hilarious.
I was like, I liked it at first, and then I was like, man, he's really making Eli kind of obsolete. And I'm like, I kind of like the Eli Peyton thing, but Peyton and Belichick is really cool, that dynamic. So I don't know, it's cool, whatever. I watched it for
Belichick is
yeah,
great football stuff, maybe not the best TV.
yeah. I mean, he's just kind of sitting there whatever, but his knowledge is so great, it's phenomenal. You want to listen to him because you're like,
Yeah.
I want to get into your mind. So whatever. But this is a Greeks versus Trojans, offense versus defense game for me. Aaron Rodgers, the Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall's got to do it this week. The running back position for the Buffalo Bills on their defense, they're going number 32. They're the worst against the running back position. So Brees Hall, running back 1 for me this week. I still have him as my running back 12 because I got to see it first, Billy. On the opposite side, you're going to love it, though, James Cook, my running back 10, just because I'm not very, my concerns that were my concerns about Josh Allen in the offseason and everything like that we talked about are showing they're my concerns again, right? We saw him go these quarterback 1, quarterback 28, quarterback 1, quarterback 28, quarterback 19. Like, it's all over the place. He's really, really good when he's good, but then he's really, really bad when he's bad, right? The decisions that he's making, like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, just focus on Dalton Kincaid. Focus on Keon Coleman, these studs. Like, hand the ball off, be the quarterback that we need you to be, Josh Allen. Stop doing what you're doing. Like the meme, like the from Jersey Shore, the Ron stop. It's got to be like, Josh, stop, and just play football on Monday night, and don't have Belichick talking ish about you. Have Peyton talking good stuff about you. Bad stuff about Aaron Rodgers and this team over here that's can't get right. Oh my goodness, Billy, what do you got with this game? Because it's like I mentioned, the Greeks versus Trojans, offense versus defense. It could also be it's a hybrid one. I'm sorry, I forgot I didn't see that on my notes. It's also the Hector versus Petrocles. It is a fraud game for Josh Allen, as maybe the Jets come up as a defensive team and got that DC interim head coach vibe, and they're going to come out and they're going to play, and Aaron Rodgers is going to be calling the plays. Garrett Wilson going to get the ball, maybe too much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you. I think one thing typically I see teams when they make a head coaching change that next week they kind of come out with the fire lit underneath them and they play really well. The Bills are really vulnerable, and I think the Texans put out a blueprint to really make Josh Allen struggle, like 9 of 30 last week against the Texans. That's really bad. There's no receivers that are going to be able to step up. I'm with Kevin Wilson. Real concern for Keon Coleman this week. Rookie wide receiver, going to be going up against a tough Jets defense. And I just, it's just not something that I want to really invest in. But if you have Josh Allen where you drafted him, you're likely married to him, unless maybe, hey, you want to give Spencer Rattler a run in a lot nicer matchup. But, I might do that just because of how we saw it go for Josh Allen last week. But Breece and Braylon, both running backs, I think, are guys you can start this week. I would be starting Braylon Allen. Obviously, Breece, you're playing against this Bills defense. Number 32 against the running backs over the last month. The most receptions to running backs. That gives me hope for Breece Hall, the receiving threat that he is, and the 5th most rushing yards gives me a little bit of hope that Braylon Allen will get a little bit going on the ground as well. So both of those guys I think you can play. Obviously, James Cook, a personal favorite of mine, but Garrett Wilson, the only Jet pass catcher that I really want to play as well. Really got it going last week against the Minnesota Vikings in a tough matchup, 13 catches for 100 yards. I told you I really thought he would be there for a bounce back. Minnesota, just a weird matchup. The zone defense that they like to run, Aaron Rodgers picks it apart, and they tend to give up a lot of receptions actually on the back end. So Garrett Wilson, a guy that got on track last week. Let's see what this offense could do. I'm playing him, keeping the momentum going. Hopefully that these guys think they know more than Robert Saleh could get it going better. We're yet to see that. But I like the Jets for a W on Monday Night Football. They're a 2-point underdog, over under a 41. I will take the over. I think both teams score some points in a little bit of a shootout. Jets need this game. Bills got to have it as well as they start to build momentum. And I think this is going to be a really fun game. Jets with a ton to prove to owner Woody Johnson after making a knee-jerk reaction earlier in the week.
Absolutely, and I love that you think the Jets could win, because that's why I made it a hybrid game with the Hector versus Petrocles fraud alert on the Josh Allen news. I like that. I'm going to go with that then. That's what we're going to call this. And it's not going to be offense defense. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers and the Jets defense coming out and spanking the Bills. Like you said, Josh Allen, ooh, the blueprint from Miko, 9 of 30 for 131 and only 4 for 54 on the ground, keeping them contained. But Kevin Wilson, been in the chat, senior writer Kevin Wilson, thank you for being here, sir. You, sir, unlocked the next gen stat talking about Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman ranked number 3 per next gen stats in the category of incredible yak. You know how much we love yak here on the show, on his 49-yard TD. So, Kevin Wilson, you and Keon Coleman, like you said, you have concerns about him. I do too. If they don't target him, he's an alpha. Why not target him? But we'll see what happens. Jets defense, they're number 2 against the quarterback, number 8 against the running back, number 6 against the wide receiver, number 3 against the tight end. Just don't allow a lot in the over-under 40.5, even with the Bills playing.
I'll tell you what
phenomenal.
They do allow, Chris. The 9th most receptions to running back. So a little bit of hope for James Cook to catch a few balls, even though he hasn't been really doing a lot of that lately, maybe we see some of that.
We hope to see that. A little bit of Breece Hall on the other side. Let's talk. We got a little bit of time now. Braylon Allen, man, like he's almost like where you get him, it's almost better than with Breece Hall because where you drafted. Is this the new Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb question conversation? Possibly.
It's very much a similar conversation. And like we talked about last week, we're seeing Braylon's workload increase, but we haven't really seen it, take a chop out of Breece's workload as far as carries go. They just started kind of giving Braylon some work, and it's gone very well, but he doesn't catch balls quite the same way Breece Hall does. So I think they're still going to use these guys in a complementary role, but where you got Braylon Allen, likely a waiver wire guy or a deep pick, maybe a handcuff to Breece. If you got them both, you're probably playing them both, and that's a pretty good situation to have.
That is a great situation to have, just like Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Like you can
Yes.
understand, like it's phenomenal in fantasy football. You know who else is phenomenal in fantasy football? Brandon Gabor, the Prince of Projections himself. He's not with us tonight, everybody, but you can always follow him on our Belly Up account. Find all of his stuff there. His deep dive follow him at Deep Dive FF on Twitter, or I'm sorry, at X. I'm sorry, it's like when I say the Redskins or the Commanders. I'm sorry. And then on all Spotify, iTunes, things like that, Apple Music. I forgot. He was like, "You're so old, Chris. Stop it." But yes, follow Brandon. He's phenomenal. Another person that's phenomenal is Billy Witt. He's our lead guy over here, man. He does everything. Does production, does graphics, gets everything rocking and rolling. He's been making this thing go. Go to the website, everybody. Go see what we got going on over there. We have articles aplenty. We have early rankings going on. Everything that you need to help you with these start sit questions with your fantasy lineups. You can even send them in and I'll pretend they're mine. But most of the time when I'm asking for me, I'm really asking for me. I'm petty like that. I gotta ask these guys about, I'm a slave to my own rankings sometimes. Getting that other thought process out is really, really good, and it's helpful. Billy, where can everyone follow you? What's going on real quick? Take a little bit of time. We have a little bit of time. It's only been 90 minutes. We can go up to 2 hours per Travis and per StreamYard.
Yeah, man, follow me at bwit24. I'm just hanging out at Belly Up, trying to get our menu put out for you guys, get our things tuned up. Kevin Wilson, thanks, man. I appreciate you. You too, man. Kevin Wilson's articles on Friday coming out. His start sits. We're starting to put a team together, guys. We got some things coming together. A lot of things coming together, ideas, just all the fantasy content you could ever want coming from Belly Up Fantasy Sports. So, Chris, let me take a second to thank you, man. My partner in crime, a guy I run everything off of, man. I know you say I do a lot. Everybody says I do a lot. I do a lot, but the brainchild of it all is you, man. I'm just executing your vision, and I appreciate your help. I know everybody here at Belly Up. I appreciate you hosting the show all the time, bringing life to everything, and just being a big piece of everything we have moving forward here. So, Chris, I want to say thanks to you, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. No one wants to hear that, though. No one wants to hear you talk good about me. What I will say is, though, Billy, it's been 92 minutes, 93 minutes by the time we log off of here, but you can go follow all of us. First, go follow at Belly Up Fantasy, then go follow at Belly Up Fantasy Live, then go follow at Deep Dive FF, then go follow at The Siege, then go follow at TJS Sumter, then go follow the Kevin Wilson with the 26 or 62 in there. Go follow at BWIT24, then go follow at Aggie Kappa Sig if you've got a little bit of time at the end. Guys, go on and be perfect. This was Belly Up Fantasy Live.